So Canada recently held its March for Life, and I thought I would give a few thoughts on the matter as a Canadian, as a traditional Catholic, and how effective I think the pro-life movement is in Canada. Now, for starters, I want to talk about the pro-life movement in general, and biblically what the Bible and the Church Fathers have to say about abortion. This is a traditional Catholic channel, and a lot of left-wing Catholics try to argue that, oh, abortion is okay in the Catholic Church. Like, okay, let's take a look at what the Bible and the early Church Fathers has to say about that matter. Luke 1:41-44. And it came to pass that when Elizabeth heard the salutation of Mary, the infant leapt in her womb. Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Ghost, and she cried out with a loud voice and said, Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. And whence is this to thee that my mother of my Lord should come to me? For behold, as soon as the voice of thy salutation sounded in my ears, the infant in my womb leapt for joy. The first person, aside from Our Lady, to recognize Jesus Christ as God and Messiah was an unborn child. Child is in her womb. Furthermore, and yes, I'm aware there was some debate among Catholic theologians in the early, certainly particularly in the Middle Ages, about at what point is the child, strictly speaking, conceived and ensouled, etc., and so forth. That being said, most of those debates are about when does artificial birth control end and when does abortion begin, largely speaking, and when do the different moral culpabilities come to play with each one. Abortion has always been forbidden by the Catholic Church. Always. How do we know this? And that this is the traditional, original doctrine. This is a quote from the Didache, 1st century, older than some books in the New Testament. Quote, and the second commandment of the teaching, you should not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not commit pederasty. You shall not commit fornication. You shall not steal. You shall not practice magic. You shall not practice witchcraft. You shall not murder a child by abortion, nor kill that which is begotten. Didache Chapter 2. The traditional Christian biblical understanding of this is that it is a mortal sin. Yes, I'm aware of various passages in the Old Testament where killing an unborn child by accident is treated more as tort law rather than murder. A lot of things were allowed and tolerated in the old law, as these same people who bring that up will point out, that are not tolerated in the new. Those were people who had to be told repeated specifically that sacrificing an unborn child to Molech was expressly forbidden, in addition to thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not have no other gods before me. That means there are people who thought that maybe sacrificing a child to Molech might be an exception to those two rules. That's the level of morality you're dealing with. Christian morality in the New Testament, New Covenant, absolutely not. Absolutely forbidden. That is what the Bible has to say. Furthermore, I'm also quite well aware of the fact, if you read the Analects, that this is not even a uniquely Christian idea. For example, I'm more reading the Annex of Confucius. I remember reading it a few years ago. I had a copy, abbreviated version. One of the things that said was grossly immoral and a grave sin against filial piety was to commit an abortion. It is expressly forbidden in Christian morality. That being said, the fact of the matter remains that we live in a society where a large portion of the population thinks it should be allowed. And the very fact of the matter is that by and large they have won. It is, in many places, settled law. France recently put it in their constitution that abortion is a right. In Canada, there are virtually no pro-life politicians. I remember hearing about, and this is one of the reasons why I'm going to lead on. The United States is a very different scenario. In Canada, I remember looking at the Campaign Life Coalition website one time. They're talking about the great pro-life victory of this election, and they said we have 8, not 88, pro-life candidates who got into office, and each of them, those pro-life candidates said, I'm personally against abortion, but I'm not going to do anything about it. The United States, it's another matter. Roe versus Wade has happily been overturned. That being said, it's still, the battle is far from won. It is very much going on at a state level. Different states have different laws. So, it is a sin. As a Catholic, as someone who believes in basic human rights of any sort, killing innocent people is clearly not something that we should be tolerating under any pretext whatsoever. So what does this mean for as a Catholic Canadian context? So I'll say this. I am very personally critical of how pro-life work is handled in Canada. Again, I do not like how we lead into Americanization. I think we are a different cultural context, a different situation, and we are, especially on this matter. And I think it actually undermines real pro-life work. For starters, I got some stories for you. I remember speaking was during COVID. I was speaking online with a supposedly pro-life traditional Catholic woman who said that, quote, mask mandates are worse than the crime of abortion. Because her liberty is being infringed, and that's the worst thing ever. This is the conservative movement that's coming to Canada now. Is it pro-life friendly? No. I also get told to not vote Trudeau because he is pro-abortion. So is Prolife. He is only pro-life in the sense that he'll take the votes of pro-lifers. If you think he might be the better option on other matters, fine, or Trudeau for that matter. But on this matter, in practical terms, both of them are anti-life from a pro-life standpoint. I am also quite aware, and I used to listen to and sign up to pro-life news in Canada, and I remember, and I stopped after a while because they would ask for they would call up campaigns and will ask what their stances are on pro-life issues, and I remember routinely the only people who would even call back would be PPC candidates, and those responses were like very rare, and it was pretty well across the board. I'm personally pro-life, but I'm 100% would fight for abortion as a right. This is in stark contrast to the United States, where you do have full-on pro-life activists, states at the state level banning abortion and putting in pro-life laws. So, however much you deal with are against abortion in Canada, the fact of the matter is, I do not think using American-style tactics, trying to get ground rule support in the House of Commons to end abortion is going to be an effective way, long-term, of ending abortion. I definitely do not think, especially because of that woman and many pro-lifer, and I don't think we as Canadians should hook our political hopes on the Conservative Party of Canada. They are not going to do anything. They have stated over and over again that they are not going to do anything. The only thing they said they would do is that they would fight for our right to complain. And honestly, as a pro-lifer, and I remember getting one pro-life activist mad at me for saying this, which tells you how bad the situation is in Canada. If I have to choose about zipping my yap for the rest of my life and saving even one unborn child, I will zip my yap about abortion for the rest of my life, if that's what it takes, happily. It would even say it's one more child. They got mad at me for saying that. They say, you want to take that back? No. I stand by what I say. I am not interested in the right to yap. I'm not interested, first and foremost, in the right to yabber on about how I don't like abortion. I'm interested in saving the lives of unborn children. Period. Full stop. And I think that in Canada, the fact of it is, as much as I would like to see it banned, that is going to be a long way off in the future. Even in the conservative movement in Canada, it is grossly unpopular. It is seen as violation of freedom and liberty. And even those who do believe in it put it on the back burner to economic factors. It is not like the pro-life movement is not a major political force in Canada, unlike the United States. As such, in Canada and other countries that may have a similar situation, I think that pro-life practice should be adjusted accordingly. I love the March for Life. I think it's a great way for pro-lifers to social network. That being said, like, I know people, I've tried to get to a March for Life. I've never been able to. It's during a week. It's not well advertised in my area and rural areas. It's for people who live in the city, who have a lot of money and a lot of free time. I know people who live in rural areas who say, I believe in pro-life, I want to see abortion gone, but I am physically afraid of being doxxed. So I'm not going to go to a March for Life. And in my area, like, I've tried, and as I said, I've tried to go many times, never had success. And also, as a man, I question how effective my presence would even be there. Look, I absolutely believe that as a man, I need to stand up for what's right, regardless of whether or not it's popular or not. But like I said, my goal, my rule of thumb is what's going to save unborn lives. I think we need a change in Canada. I think we need a change of tactics in the March for Life and in the pro-life movement. And there are a number of factors that I'd like to see changed. And so if you're going to watch this, especially if you're Catholic faithful tradition, this is going to be hugely controversial. Things about to say. That said, it is still 100% in line of, I want abortion gone. I am pro-life. We need to do what's going to save the most unborn lives. Number one, this is probably the most controversial statement of all. I do not think we should look to the Catholic Church as being leaders in the pro-life movement in Canada. Yes, you heard me right. I do not believe it should be chiefly seen as a Christian movement in Canada. Religious people are very looked down upon in Canada more and more. And right now, it is a triage situation here. We're trying to save lives. That is, if we are pro-lifers, all right then, that's what we're doing. That does not mean I think that churches should not be involved. But we do need to be realistic. Like, I remember hearing about programs to pro-life the parish. And I remember local area, I live in Nova Scotia. I remember talking to someone a few years ago, who was the head of the pro-life movement in Nova Scotia. And I was talking about like doing things pro-life movement through the local diocese. They weren't interested in helping. They got blown off, didn't respond to emails, etc. Parish halls would rent out headquarters, but that was it. That was it. And even among them, in the wider populace, like among traditional Catholics, we see the dioceses as being major monoliths of authority. Not through the rest of the general population of Canada. Like in my area, we got one parish, maybe two priests in residence for an area that covers the size of an area like half the size of Lebanon. And even among his small group, it's mostly a bunch of retirees who goes to his mass. My area is largely fully secular. They don't know or care, for that matter, what the Catholic Church teaches in the matter. And if the Catholic Church teaches it, for them, they consider it another reason to be against it, because they hate Catholicism. Who I do think should be good leaders, who I do think would be good group of people to step into this, would be groups like the Equal Rights Institute. They are a bunch of secular and atheist pro-lifers. I think that I'd like to see them set up shop in Canada. I like to see them have a concerted campaign. Those people we need to reach, the people who are going to really oppose abortion, are going to be thinking in their terms. I want them to come to Canada. Equal Rights Institute, please someone send them this video. Please come to Canada. Make a concerted campaign. Reach out to anyone you can if they're in Nova Scotia. In all the provinces, at least one headquarters in every province. And a goal to reach out and do pro-life work in counties, in local counties, because a lot of population is still rural. Like in my area, like people don't go to the provincial capital every day. Like some people go like maybe once a year. Those are people who know how anti-lifers think. Those are the people we need to get in charge of the pro-life movement. And I would think we should just let them take the lead and invite them to take the lead. Do I think churches have a role to play? Yes, I do. That said, it needs to change. The second thing in an area where I think things need to change, and I think churches do have a role to this, and men in this regard. I think activism on the streets, like doing the March for Life, should be very much a women's thing, personally. It needs to be a woman's thing by mothers, done by mothers and women of childbearing age. So if you're a woman and wondering, and you are Orthodox, hold the faith, and you're wondering how you can serve Jesus Christ, please get involved in pro-life. Please, I beg you, get involved in pro-life. Get your daughters involved in it. That is what you can do. That is what you can and should be doing. But an area but charity work, like look in fundraising, that's something I think men can get involved in, something I think churches should take a lead in. And it's also something I think is still being done rather poorly right now. So in my area, we have a local pregnancy center, happily. That being said, I have spoken with women who have gone there, and they got evangelized, but didn't get a whole lot of practical help. There's some baby bucks, but the support was quite minimal. Certainly well below what I was hoping for. Because I've had female friends who've been in that situation. I directed them there, and I have to admit I was disappointed. Now, I definitely think we need pregnancy centers. Something is better than nothing. That being said, I think need to de-emphasize evangelism. Evangelism comes one-on-one in a relational context in that situation. Great if you can do it, but the primary reason you're there, and help cannot be conditional upon being willing to be evangelized. It needs to be practical material help in that situation. How do I find work? What practical supports? Who can I get some mentors to help guide me through this process of what am I going to do? My family's going to kick me out. Where do I stay? Things like that. Diapers, food, formula, financial support and services. And because I got to tell you, like, I'm very much in favor, personally, I know a lot of tribes are going to mad at me for saying this, I'm in favor somewhat of a welfare state, but it falls way behind what it needs to be for support for women in this situation and their children. And it's not just like, oh, here's some money, go off. It needs to be a long-term thing. Secondly, such events, fundraisers for women in this situation, are actually, if you're going to talk about community outreach, giving people the pro-life message, that is actually going to be a far more effective way to reach out to people than I think the March for Life is going to be. A, you can do it more frequently. B, this is actually, in many ways, many of the goals of pro-life charities, even pro-choicers can get behind. So any pro-abortion, anyone who's pro-abortion, pro-choice who's watching this, this is a debate. This is a question I have for both pro-lifers and pro-choicers. Where is all the funding? So we've heard about the topic, pregnancy, a woman has to have an abortion or she'll die. Where is the funding for alternatives to those situations? Well, from the pro-lifers say, well, morally speaking, it's still killing an innocent life. Therefore, like we need to, like, unborn child needs to take precedent, or something like that. Meanwhile, the pro-choicers say, well, at least the woman has the choice at all. Both of which, like, I'm going to say this is a situation, this is a sane pro-lifer. Such a situation is neither pro-life, either baby or mother will die, or both. It's literally anti-life. That's a situation. And being choose between your child or your life is not much of a choice. Honestly, anyone who's seriously insincere about being pro-choice, and anyone who's sincere about being against abortion, should 100% be collaborating to find funding for alternatives and to research so that those things don't need to happen. Like, that births are safe, that women who are do want to keep their children have those options. Like, even if I were pro-choice, I would still 100% support pregnancy centers, and I would, because that is not because have an abortion or you die or be in poverty is not much of a choice, honestly. And both pro-lifers and pro-choicers should honestly, if they want to be consistent with their world views and actually practice what they want to preach, should stop bickering and get to it. Fund research for that. And pro-lifers, honestly, if you're a pro-lifer, that is, what an amazing way. A situation where you could probably reach out to pro-choicers, to women who are in this situation, get them learn about the pro-life position. You want to evangelize pro-life, that's a great way to do it. Far more comfortable on something that pretty much everyone can get behind. Yeah, I don't think women who are in this situation should have to choose an abortion. I think there should be those supports there. I think that should be the basis in Canada for where we do it. Because let's be honest, banning abortions can be a long way off if it happens if any of our lifetimes. The best way we can reduce abortions in Canada, in my opinion, is to build up those safety nets, raise awareness for those safety nets. And honestly, even if you're pro-choice, that is something that you should be able to get behind, if you're at least consistent. If you're at least consistent and actually want to respect a woman's choice. You don't agree with the message you're teaching. So what? Welcome to the club. There's a lot of people you're going to I got bad news for you, and for pro-lifers. You're going to be interacting with a lot of people who do not share your values on a number of issues every day. But honestly, if you actually respect choice or respect life, practice what you preach, or call yourself by another name. Because that is something that is very much respectful of women's choice, that provides more choice, and is very much provides more access to life. As pro-lifers, that is how I think things should change in Canada. And it's an area where I think men should have a greater role now. Honestly, I don't like how most of the pro-life movement, what most pro-lifers are doing. I do not like their strategies. And they don't do a very good job at reaching out. And we're living in an area where that is increasingly hostile to pro-life work. It's basic. Right now we are fighting for basic, even acceptance of pro-life. Like I said, MPs aren't even courting our votes anymore in Canada. We're not the United States. We need to act and adjust our tactics accordingly, not our values. Not our values. Pro-life, no abortion, no exception is a great goal to work towards in the law, but even the most basic pro-life laws are a long way off in Canada. We need to build the infrastructure for these children who are going to be saved from abortion. Because Romania, they just banned it outright. After a decade, their economy couldn't handle the abandoned children, and so they brought it back. I want Canada to come pro-life, but I don't want to see it pro-life for 10 years and revert back to what it was. I want to see it pro-life to the end of the world. And we need to build the infrastructure. We need to build those safety nets. And if you say, oh, that's communist, well, you're not really that much of a pro-lifer. If you just write off any social safety nets, which, by the way, rerum novarum, did talk about safety nets. It said it did talk about who is better, that it's better, this is better provider of that safety net than that person, but it absolutely said we need a safety net. You're not much of a pro-lifer. The pro-life movement in Canada is honestly dead. It is a few small minority, concentrated in cities, and as far as pro-life activism outside the cities goes, it's you keep your mouth shut. You do not think about it. You do not speak about it if you know what is good for you. And there's honestly no, and these are areas where there are abortions going on. There's no way, there's no infrastructure to express your view or do anything about it. And honestly, clinging to American-style March for Lives, focusing on our free speech rights to express ourselves, is not helping. It is doing harm, and it is neglecting tactics that could save the lives of unborn children. To all Canadian Catholic pro-lifers, please do something. Anyway, normally I will I shout at SSPX, and I do again, because I believe, as Catholics believe for tradition, we should all go there. But I'm also going to try to remember in this video to put a link to the Equal Rights Institute, because I think that I've seen their work on Instagram and social media. They are excellent. They are excellent in their pro-life work and raising awareness and providing a pro-life apologetics, far better than what I've seen done in Canada so far. And I would very much like to see them take the lead, as they are filled with people who have values far more similar to Canadians on the ground than many people in churches do, unfortunately. But right now we're focusing on saving lives. And story of the Good Samaritan. Samaritan did not ask the Jewish man who his religious views. The Jewish man did not ask the Samaritan his religious views. He just provided practical help and let God take care of the rest. And that's what we need to do. Anyway, God bless. Have a great day. Pray for pro-life. Pray for the pro-life movement. And God bless Equal Rights Institute. Have a great day.